Have you ever wondered how much of your past is really a part of you? Not just the stuff you remember, but the experiences of your ancestors. Could their lives actually be written into your very biology? That's what we're diving into today.
I mean, it's a massive question, right? It touches on everything from spirituality and who we are to the very code of life itself. And, humanity has been wrestling with this for a long, long time.
For most of human history, the answer to this question wasn't found in a science lab. It was found in a spiritual context. It was all about inheritance, just not the genetic kind.
This idea is woven into so many cultures all over the world. This feeling that we carry the legacy of our ancestors, for better or for worse. It's like a kind of spiritual or emotional hand-me-down.
Okay, so to see how this idea plays out today, let's look at a really powerful, concrete example. It comes from a recent sermon that gets right to the heart of this.
So listen to that. This is a plea, a prayer. And what's so striking here is that it's not just about some abstract spiritual healing. It's asking to restore something physical, our brains, from what it calls damage passed down from the past.
So if you break that down, the framework is pretty clear. First, the actions of ancestors can leave a real physical mark. Second, that mark gets passed down. But, and this is the crucial part, it also says there's hope, that this damage can be undone through a kind of spiritual restoration. And this is where it gets really, really interesting. Because for the longest time, science would have just said, nope, your genes are your genes, end of story. But that story is changing in a huge way. Welcome to the wild world of epigenetics. It's a field that's uncovering this hidden layer of information that's literally sitting right on top of our DNA. Now, here's the absolute key. Epigenetics doesn't change your DNA sequence, the actual letters of your genetic code. What it changes is which genes get used and how much. Think of them like dimmer switches that can be turned up, down, or switched off completely. Some scientists call this the epigenetic code. And it's kind of like biology's dark matter. It's this whole other vast set of instructions that tells your body how to actually read the master blueprint of your DNA.
So what is it exactly? Well, epigenetics is all about these modifications to DNA that don't change the sequence. And here's the word that changes everything. They are heritable. That means, in some cases, these changes can actually be passed down from a parent to their child.
I think the best way to wrap your head around this is the cookbook analogy. Imagine your DNA is a giant master cookbook with every recipe your body could ever possibly need, while the epigenome is all the handwritten notes in the margins. Double the salt here, skip this chapter, only make this on special occasions. The notes don't rewrite the recipes, but they completely change how they get used. So how do those notes even get written? Well, something happens in your environment, let's say a period of high stress. That event signals little cellular writers to go in and add a tiny chemical tag to your DNA. Then, reader proteins come along, see that tag, and follow the instructions, changing how that gene gets used. It's this living, dynamic system. And there are all kinds of these little notes. For example, something called DNA methylation is kind of like putting a big do not use sticker on a gene, effectively silencing it. Then you have histone modifications, which are more like changing how tightly the pages of the cookbook are bound together, making some recipes easier or harder to get to.
And the complexity here is just staggering. I mean, for just those histone modifications alone, scientists know of over 100 different types. This isn't a simple on-off switch. It's an incredibly rich molecular language that our cells are constantly using to adapt.
Which, of course, brings us right back to our big question. If the tough times our ancestors went through, famine, trauma, stress, can leave these marks that get passed down, are we stuck? Is our fate sealed by their experiences?
And here's the most amazing part. Both of the frameworks we've looked at, one ancient and spiritual, the other on the cutting edge of science, seem to point to the same incredible, hopeful answer. No, we are not locked in.
Now take a look at this quote from a scientific paper. I know, the language is super technical, but what it's saying is revolutionary. Reshape the phenotype landscape is basically a fancy way of saying we can change the observable traits of our cells. The paper suggests we might be able to actively rewire our biology to reverse things we once thought were permanent.
So, do you see it? On the one hand, a call for restoration. On the other, a strategy for reverse control. The words are different, the methods are totally different, but the core idea is breathtakingly similar. What has been done can be undone.
Both frameworks are basically saying that these inherited states aren't a permanent destiny. They suggest that through some kind of intervention, whether you see that as spiritual or as targeted bioengineering, the story can actually be changed. And that shifts everything away from fate and toward hope and agency.
And that's really the big takeaway here. Maybe our biological story isn't written in permanent ink. Maybe it's written in pencil. This suggests a future where we aren't just passive recipients of our history, but maybe even active participants in where our biology goes next.
So, that leaves us with one last pretty powerful question to think about. If our past is truly written in our genes, what story are we going to choose to write for the future?